Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Monday. It is June the 29th, and I'll give you a belated happy Somali Independence Day. Whatever the hell that is. Apparently, that's the thing. If you live in Minnesota, which used to be America, but now is not America. So we're going to talk a little bit about people who have come in and taken up residence in places they have no business staying in. I thought we were going to get rid of these types, but I don't think we actually are. And the Trump administration has more or less confirmed this. So we'll talk a little bit about the ethnic enclaves that are taking place, places in Ohio, places in Minnesota, again, places that used to be America. We're going to talk about the K-shaped economy and maybe some more detail on that. Why some people are going to argue with you that everything is amazing. And I know you guys have been clamoring for it. I know you've been asking, and I will give you what you like, baby birds. I will feed you more Ivanka Trump. You were thinking, Seraphin, can you just give me a little bit more of a rich, pretty white lady with a plastic face? Can you tell me about her struggles and what she's given up to be able to serve America? Yeah, I can. I got that for you. I got that queued up and ready to go. We're also going to talk about maybe the most frustrating thing and maybe the most emblematic thing of the Trump presidency 2.0. It's this concept of a ceasefire. The ceasefire also involves kinetic military actions to include explosives and missiles and counterstrikes and drone strikes and so on. We're going to talk about this new idea of military doctrine, which is known as the kinetic ceasefire. That means that we agree to not kill each other, not shoot each other, not blow things up, and then we just keep doing it anyway, but then we act like we're involved in a peace talk. That apparently is going on. And so maybe that's a good metaphor for the sort of broader concept that seems to be the case for a lot of people who are looking at this Trump administration and wondering, like, where the hell did it go? I thought we were getting promised something. It is the idea of a rug pull. Now, if you're familiar with the concept of either the stock market or if you're familiar with cryptocurrencies, people will do something where they do what's called a rug pull. That means they pump up the expectation, the excitement for, and the money invested in something. And then the people who are pumping this up quietly pull all the money out of it. And those are the people that bought into it are left with basically holding a bag of nothing. I have the perfect video, which was created to show not just how crypto works, but also I think a lot of the promises that the Trump administration has given us. And I'll just give you like a kind of the heads up in advance. It's really disappointing to watch it, but it's kind of perfect. So we'll get into all those things. I may have some other kind of stuff in there. Oh, the price of oil is starting to go back up again because of this kinetic ceasefire, which means we agreed to do something. And then they were like, oh, let's not do that. And then lastly, we'll talk a little bit about Flock and some AI and some other nonsense. Yeah, it's going to be a full show. We've got all those things coming your way. How about let's talk about Patriot Protect? I got a really great little message over on Spotify. And sometimes you guys give me feedback that I really appreciate getting. There's a couple of you that were going back and forth saying, I signed up with Patriot Protect and I no longer can Google myself and find anything else about me. That's fantastic. I've actually been looking into some open source into the parents of Alexis Wilkins because she's suing me and it frustrates me. And a bunch of other open source researchers are finding all kinds of wild stuff. Maiden names, former email addresses, tax records that are out there. All that stuff starts because there are hundreds of data companies that are publishing your name and your phone number and your kid's name and your addresses, and everything about you that's ever been leaked out on the internet is all out there unless you do something to take it down. And someone like me can Google your name, find out where you live, where you lived. I can go into the county tax records and find out when the deeds shakes hands. I can find out when you lived in somewhere. I'm actually pretty good at this, but so are a lot of other people. So if you guys don't want this information out there, if you don't want someone just jumping on your Facebook because they can figure out what your account looks like and pictures of you and your birthday and figure out all the answers to your security questions when they find your hacked bank account information on the dark web, you can do something about it. Patriot Protect is the way to go do that. Make sure you're removing your information from these data broker websites. We talked with Skip Holtz last week. And he said he could go on for hours about how frustrating it is. It really is an invasion. It makes it a weaponized version of what the internet offers, and you can actually do something about it. That's not something you can do after someone steals from you. You can do it in advance, and it costs you a couple bucks a month. So check into them. There are other services that will alert you once your money's gone. Patriot Protect is the one that's trying to make sure that you're unsearchable in the first place. Phone scams can cost you up to $1,500. It's way, way cheaper to go to patriot-protect.com/KYLE. And using that promo code, you'll save 15% off an annual subscription. Again, about $5-6 a month, something like that. Patriot-protect.com/KYLE. There is a link in the show description. Protect your own online privacy. You'll find out that there's actually pretty good benefit to making yourself a little bit more digitally invisible. Get some digital camouflage in your life. All right, let's get into today's program. We're starting it right now. It does feel like the coffee is hitting just right now. My wife actually just brought me a second cup, so we're going to get that going. I hope you guys had a good weekend, and I hope that some of you were not celebrating this. I don't know what this is. I don't know how we ended up in America where this is the case. This is Keith Ellison. He's the Attorney General of Minnesota. Did some reading on the obituary from my grandmother who passed. She was in her mid-90s. She was born in 1935, I think. And is that right? I don't think that's right. Anyway, maybe 1930? 1930. Happy Somali Independence Day. The reason I bring that up is because my grandmother was born in Minnesota. What a wild time 100 years ago to see that today we are celebrating with Somali immigrants who have taken over the police department and have taken over sort of the culture of what it takes to get you elected. That's freaking insane. I mean, it really is. I don't even know any other way to say it. It's completely bizarre to me to imagine that this is the mayor of a very large American city in a place like Minnesota, which would have been the whitey places because it's way up in the north where it's freaking cold. There were no slaves. There were no slave populations that ran up that way. It's nuts. And instead, what you have is this guy who's the attorney general, and you've got the mayor of Minneapolis, a.k.a. what is it called? Mogadishu. It's great celebrating Minnesota's incredible Somali community. Your culture, leadership, and contributions to the state make it stronger every day. I don't think that's true. It looks something like this.
Through the most difficult of times and through Operation Metro Surge, we all saw that they tried to come for some of us. And when that happens, we say that you're coming for all of us. In Minneapolis, we love our neighbors. In Minneapolis, we do not see you as immigrants, we see you as our family. You're our brothers, you are our sisters. You have done so much for this incredible city, and for that, we stand with you.
So they literally changed the flag of the state to show this invasion. Now, some of you were listening to that and you're going, Seraphin, I don't understand what he's saying. Is that Jacob Fry? Is that the mayor of Mogadishu, Somalia, Minnesota? And my answer to you is yes. So I actually have a translated version that might be a little bit easier for you to understand. If you didn't see it, there are a bunch of women standing with hijabs on, and they're all wearing what is either the Somali flag or the state of Minnesota's flag, which are almost the same thing. Again, for those that couldn't understand what he was saying because it was an outdoor rally and it's difficult to translate and that's not a language familiar to you, I've actually got what he was saying in a better way. So here we go.
Maaga Egawa Jacob Fry, Doke Magalada, Minneapolis. Damaan, Shaabka Somaliyed, Kayamid, Mogadishu, Garowe, Hargeisa, Bosaso, Bedabo, Kismayo, Wahan Rabah, In An Idin Shego. Minneapolis, Wa Magaladina, Wahad Kamid Tihin, Laf Dabarka. Magaladan Ka Digesa, Boshado, Isku, Duban. Si Kasta U Madewen, Donald Trump U Su Rugo, Sharki. Minneapolis, Wa Magalo Garnesa, Wanaga, Iyo Kemaha.
How long does this go on?
ledehin. Ugo danbenti wahan idin leahe aid wanaxan aid mubarak.
That was only 60 seconds of the Booga Booga language, and I felt like I was listening to that for an hour. I honestly, I was like, oh my God, did I let that run for 2 minutes? No, that's a 2-minute clip of which I played 56 seconds. Okay, I like the word sharky. I like that sharky is a word somehow in Somali, whatever that nonsense is. So, how are we going to segue this weird situation going on in, honestly, like what would have been an incredibly white American, Canadian, not Somali, not logical place to put these people? How would you be able to segue this into a discussion about AI, do you think? And can I do it? I can. The same sentiment that allowed the colonization, the invasion, the cooperation, I don't know what you even call this sort of non-assimilation of Somalis in Minnesota. That same instinct can be used for good. It can be used to destroy flock cameras. What you say? No, trust me. It's confusing. NBC News story today. This is a useful sort of thing that the Trump administration should be looking into. Voters of both parties want tighter AI regulation, poll finds. There's almost universal dislike for these cameras, for the ubiquitous technical surveillance, for the ability of our government using privatized sources to spy on us, to look in on us, and then to share it with law enforcement. Now, if you're an American who cares about liberty and you think that liberty may be dangerous and you think that being able to do things on your own and that you're responsible for your own safety, that there is no one's coming to save you, then that's one group. And if you think that cameras could be used to hunt down your favorite people in America, the people who are here illegally, or the people that have come here and do not assimilate to the culture, we have common ground here. My kids and I watched Zootopia 2 this weekend, which is really cute. It's a cute movie. But one of the main characters, same as the last Zootopia movie, it's an animated film. There's animals and they all get along together. And there's like this sort of communist thing. By the way, the second Zootopia is sort of like this veiled attempt to normalize Muslim reintegration into otherwise non-Muslim areas. It's like the snakes, which are the ones that are kicked out of the Zootopia, the big city, they're coming in and they have like very Middle Eastern Moroccan vibes, although they're supposed to be pit vipers, which as far as I could tell are like not desert dwelling snakes. I'm pretty confident they're all jungle snakes. Whatever. One of the characters in there is a Shakira played voice actress. It's some critter. It's a gazelle, and Gazelle speaks Spanish in a way that Spanish speakers can't understand and English speakers can't understand her. And so there was this meme a way back. It was the Predator meme, and it's Carl Weathers and Arnold Schwarzenegger, and they grabbed and they got the big rippling biceps, and it's a black hand and it's a white hand, and it says English speakers, Spanish speakers like can't understand Shakira. And we have the same sort of meme going on right now. So left-wing radical lovers of illegal alien immigration and hate America and think we're the bad guy. That's on one arm. And on the other arm, it's like people who just want to be left the F alone, radical, right-wing, libertarian, constitutionalists, pragmatic human beings. And we all come together and like we hate flock cameras. Okay? The Trump administration should take note on this. A new survey from the AI Policy Institute finds bipartisan support for legislation that targets powerful AI systems. A lot of it can be used for surveillance. A lot of it is going to be used to basically undermine freedom. You guys could know this already if you lived through the 80s and maybe you watched The Terminator, or maybe you lived through every single Philip K. Dick novel and novelette that was ever put out, and then a bunch of them were adopted into movies, and these warnings were ubiquitous. I think the people who were imagining what a future would look like for the last 100 years, sort of the science fiction movement, all of the dystopian images involved computers thinking without being able to prioritize people. And they all end up bad. It doesn't matter whether it's HAL or whether it's the Terminator or whether it's anything along those veins, iRobot, like take your pick. Over the last 100 years, Americans specifically, but Westerners have conceptualized the idea that we would put machines in charge and would it work well? And the answer is no, it would probably kill us all. So let's see what the pitch is. I think that's a first place to start. What is the pitch of how does this work in a good way? Here is some pro flock camera propaganda. Americans don't like this. I'm going to show you where the East meets West kind of thing here in a sec.
Officers say a flock safety camera flagged a car linked to a strong arm robbery in Glendale.
Listen to the
We
music.
implemented automated license plate reader a few years ago. It was part of a larger strategy to reduce a problem that we were having with gun violence in the city. It helped us reduce gun violence.
Flock cameras have revolutionized local law enforcement.
Flock cameras, and they're in use across hundreds of communities throughout Wisconsin.
They can also be used in cases of things like Amber Alerts and trying to identify missing children.
Can catch kidnappers and murderers, returned missing people, and there have been so many cases.
Help solve crimes, pointing to a recent hit and run in a shopping center parking lot.
We are in a day and age where technology is part of all the work we do.
I still think overall flock is a good idea. We want everyone protected.
Staffing crisis. And this ALPR, automated license plate reader technology, really can be an effective force multiplier.
Oh, it's incredible. It sounds so good. And you can tell it's so good because there's like a positive violin in the background. It talks about the possibilities of human protection. What could go wrong? Okay, here are hard lefties who probably love those in Somalia, who are going to be very upset about the Supreme Court decision allowing people to be deported, the Haitians that have no business being here, that have been on quote unquote temporary protected status for 15, 16 years. So here's what the lefties did. And they're more effective than your community, most likely. I want you to think about that. The radical love illegal alien lefties were able to get their flock cameras taken down because they have an adverse effect on catching people who are supposed to be kicked out of this country.
It was a short run for flock safety cameras in the city of Woodburn. In 2025, a total of 23 cameras were installed across the city to help police track down suspect vehicles. And while police say the cameras helped solve dozens of crimes, community members raised concerns that the system could allow federal agencies to access its data.
Flock security cameras that are present in Woodburn contribute to the terrorizing of our community.
City Council in November suspended the use of the cameras while the police department conducted a full review. That report confirmed what many people were afraid of, that federal agencies had accessed the system, showing nearly 6,100 searches on the city's camera network between January and November 2025. However, that number is just 0.18% of the more than 3 million total searches. And the police department says none of the searches conducted by federal agencies targeted Woodburn exclusively. The city's cameras were included in system-wide searches, contrary to city policy. According to the report, a temporary flock safety trial is what allowed federal agencies to run broad safety searches across several camera networks at once, including Woodburn's. That trial, however, appeared to have ended around June 24th, when Woodburn police say federal agency searches stopped. While Woodburn police say the cameras were used in more than 350 investigations and led to arrests, stolen vehicle recoveries, and drug seizures, concerns over the technology ultimately brought the program to an end.
The incredible part about that story, which may have eluded you if you're just listening, because it was being presented like a news story with a bunch of different information and they weren't really honing in on anything. The people in this town voted against flock security cameras, not because they were worried about their privacy being invaded, not because they were concerned that it would be used in illicit ways by law enforcement officers, but because it was being used in a way to remove people who had no right to be in this country at a rate of 0.18% of all the searches. Less than 0.25% of the searches resulted in them discontinuing it. That's freaking amazing. Again, I will find allies wherever they are, and I will align with people to get the outcomes that I'm hoping for wherever that makes sense when it comes to stuff like this. This is a nonpartisan issue. It shouldn't be. All right, we're going to read the story from NBC News real quickly. An overwhelming majority of likely voters want powerful AI systems to undergo mandatory formal safety reviews before they're released on the public. It says to the public, but I say on the public, according to a new survey of Americans' views on AIs. And it goes further than existing Trump administration policies of opt-in reviews for advanced models. The poll, conducted by a Washington, D.C.-based AI Policy Institute, AIPI, it's a nonpartisan research organization, found that Republicans were more enthusiastic about government-led safety programs for AI models than Democrats. We just have to frame the argument properly, as you just heard. Although more than half of voters supported such a measure, regardless of the political affiliation. Survey results are the latest sign of Americans' bipartisan desire for stronger AI regulations, and then I think also, if we're being honest about it, for the reduction in surveillance. That should be something we all consider. This guy is being hailed as a hero, and some people are hearing some of his story, and they're going, oh, okay. You're seeing dozens and dozens of these sort of TikTok-style videos. They're all framed as infomercials, like, don't do this thing, where they're obviously doing a little tongue-in-cheek bit where, like, maybe you should do this thing, like throw bags over the top of the cameras or disable them with powerful laser pointers. We're talking about the destruction of private property, which, generally speaking, is not a value on the political right, except when the private property is clearly infringing on your ability to move around freely in the world. So it's kind of funny that we're going to find common ground with people who are really sad about the deportation or the discovery of illegal aliens in this country. In any case, like I said, this guy being kind of hailed as a hero, he's a former Air Force, I think, engineer, and faced criminal charges for the destruction of a bunch of different flock cameras. And he probably has something close to the right idea here.
Suffolk resident Jeffrey Sovern didn't speak today, and his attorney provided no defense during his preliminary hearing. However, a detective assigned to the case on the stand said that Seraphin spoke about the unconstitutionality of license plate reader cameras following his arrest.
So I will deny the motion as it relates to that.
Our cameras were rolling today as Sovern faced the Suffolk police detectives who say he is responsible for destroying more than a dozen flock license plate reader cameras in North Suffolk over a more than 6-month period last year. Installed in the last decade in the name of safety, officers say they noticed beginning last April.
That camera was turned facing towards the wood line, which is not facing towards the road, which is its intent.
But as time progressed, detectives say they found cameras removed entirely, some of them thrown off overpasses onto I-664. Detectives detailed how a traffic camera is what led them to Sovern, who is an engineer in the Air Force. At the end of last September, a warrant was signed issuing a GPS device to track the truck he was driving. And last October, another warrant allowed for a search of his Harborview condo, where detectives say flock camera components were found.
The big issue for a lot of this is that we're talking about warrantless surveillance. This should be an issue to you if you're worried about FISA 702, if you're worried about our government basically trying to do an end around and sneak on the other side of what the Fourth Amendment requires. This is a private company. The private company gets money from public entities and then sells what would otherwise require them some sort of authorization at the very minimum to place cameras and license plate readers and so on. And it gets a lot more invasive than that. This is where it ends up going. This is something that if you've listened to this program for a while, you've heard about before. It's a concept of ubiquitous technical surveillance. Every single one of us, there's a reason why we have an advertiser called Silent and why I use their stuff. This is one of my, Faraday cage. I actually keep my keys, my key fobs for my car in a Faraday bag because I don't want people to walk by my house with a large antenna and gather that signal. But your key fobs are putting out an RF signal or can. Your phone is, your tablets are, your tire pressure readers on all four of your tires of your vehicle can put out this RF signal. That's how it gets from inside the tire to the little sensor that reads it and puts it out on your dashboard. And there's a whole bunch of other little sort of communications that are going on through RF. And all of those little unique RF signatures create one overwhelming blanket signature so that when these 20 different little unique identifiers go by, they don't need to read your license plate. They can just pick that up. So what's called ubiquitous technical surveillance is something that people in the intelligence world have been looking at for probably at least a decade. I remember hearing about it maybe in 2019, and I'm sure it was something that was being discussed beforehand for folks who were working overseas. It is now being used in a commercial sense, And there are companies that are out there using it both in the battle space, but they also have the ability to move over and use it in the commercial law enforcement space and sell this kind of idea to you. Listen to this guy. This thing I think is called Leonardo.
If you thought Flock was bad, something even more terrifying is being installed all over America. It's made by a defense contractor called Leonardo, and here's what it does. So the biggest problem with these LPRs, license plate readers like Flock, is that it needs to use a license plate to identify you, at least right now, and they can't tell who else is in your car. So what's their genius fucking solution to this? Well, they've made a device that can be installed next to any existing license plate reader, that once it's installed, that next time they pull your license plate, it will pull all the unique Bluetooth identifiers from all the smart devices in your car. And oh yeah, it gets worse. So once they have those devices, they link them to you via your license plate, and now they never need to scan your license plate again, and these can be installed anywhere, and they can see who's traveling with you, and all that fun fucking stuff.
As you can see, this is real. This is being covered by major media outlets. If we take a look at how it's described as an advanced signal intelligence system that upgrades standard license plate readers to track people by their smart devices they carry rather than just by their vehicle. So let's take a look at some more information here. It captures your device's Bluetooth, like your smartphone, smartwatches, and your car Bluetooth systems. It then captures that data and it stores that data so you no longer need to be tracked by your license plate. These signals, every time that you drive by one of these sensors, it's going to automatically know who you are. And then check this out too. It's going to automatically know who you're driving with. So all the passengers in your vehicle, they will also be tracked. So this is a mass surveillance network that's being established right now in America. And if we look at where this signal trace is already being used, it's being deployed in limited areas, but it is being deployed. And the real crazy thing about this is that it can just be simply added onto all the existing cameras that they have, including Flock. So everywhere there's a Flock camera, they can just throw one of these sensors on, and then they have a network that can mass surveillance everyone who travels and everyone who's in your vehicle.
Oops. Starts off as a good idea, and then suddenly you've got real-time tracking on everybody at all times because we've all given off this signal. There are a few things you can do about it. I've got a silent backpack. You guys can get Faraday stuff. This is a thing you could do if you wanted to do that when you're traveling. Maybe that's interesting. It's probably the smart idea when it comes to keeping track of your key fobs. But are you going to be that disciplined? Are you going to have that aggressive sort of signals hygiene the way that a professional intelligence officer does when they go into China? Like, the odds are no, you're not. The real answer is we should be going upstream and stopping them from grabbing this stuff. And if we had a Congress that really cared about liberty, they would be doing that. This is the other thing you should be warned about. This is coming from the Institute for Justice. It's underneath their category of private property, license plate readers, and Fourth Amendment project. Police have used license plate readers to stalk romantic interests at least 20 times in recent years. This is something that has always been an issue for law enforcement. It's like you give people all this power. You give these people powerful databases to be able to look into stuff. And what do they do with it? You know, there's a few things that motivate us. Money, power, sex. This is the sex part of it. People who are romantically interested in somebody, they want to go and they find out all the stuff about them, whether it's someone that they're already in a relationship with or wish they were. They have the ability to go do this. We find this happening all the time in law enforcement agencies. It happens at the federal level. It happens all the way down to the state level and the locals. Yeah, this is people getting in and running background checks. Women running background checks on men. Is he a decent guy? Does he have a record? Is he a dirtbag? Blah, blah, blah. And then you find men and they're like, oh, does she have any exes? Is she looking into somebody else? Where's she going? What is she up to? Has anyone seen her? Imagine being able to see and track where are they going in real time. Have they been driving around this thing? Are they in the same neighborhood as their ex? Are they really going to work? Or are they going somewhere else? Are they telling me the truth? It's like the worst case scenario for someone that you're not married to. You don't have any right to know all this stuff about them. In any case, across the United States, communities are rethinking their use of Flock cameras. Again, we're going to find weird and unlikely allies if you are not interested in having this thing. Everyone from, I don't want ICE deporting illegal aliens, to people who just want radical freedom and are willing to kind of defend themselves. Concerns about privacy and security and always on government surveillance systems are driving these changes, especially as new police technologies are testing the limits of the Fourth Amendment. And do we have a functional system that's out there defending us in this? Nah. Are the courts always going to be behind on it? They really will be. The proliferation of police surveillance has led to repeated abuses, one shockingly common form, officers using automated license plate reader cameras, also known as ALPR cameras, and their networks to keep tabs on romantic interests. Again, this is nothing new. This is what happens when you give human beings who are fickle and fallible access to all this information. There is kind of a good answer to it, too. The answer is you have to hire people of principles. Remember, if you guys remember the Durham report, they went back and they looked into the FBI, my ex-girlfriend, and they said, how do we stop abuses in an agency that has all this power? And the only thing the Durham report said was, you can't put in the right policies. You cannot put an enforcement mechanism in. There is literally nothing more that can be done other than hiring people of the proper principles and the right sort of mindset to come in and do law enforcement for its own sake. The people that are like, let's say, Garrett O'Boyle. People who are just going to do the right thing, even if it means working against their own best interest, knowing that it will cause them, irreparable harm and career damage, and they'll still do it. And honestly, I had this conversation in the hallway right outside of church yesterday. Met a brother of one of our family friends, and he and I were talking, and he's like, what can you do? What is the breakdown in your old agency of people who are good and people that are bad? And I said, it's probably 10% of people that are radically good and are willing to do things against their own best interests. It's probably 10% of people, maybe 15% of people that are willing to do whatever they want to get whatever they need. So really operationally moral bad people. And then 75 to 80% of the people in there are just doing what they're told. This is the ordinary men mentality. This is the ordinary men argument. And the problem is we all got to see this in real time during COVID. You had a bunch of people doing stuff they knew was illegal, immoral, or unethical. They were asked to do it. And the only thing that was being held over them was, you may not be able to do this job anymore. And honest to God, if enough of them had resisted and said, this is wrong, we're not going to do it, they wouldn't have been able to fire all of them. You couldn't replace all of the officers and agents of the state with AI and technical surveillance. It couldn't be done. So they would have still needed to keep people in there. They would have had to kowtow to us. And yet we couldn't even get a simple majority, let alone a massive majority, which is what it should have been. And I think, honestly, if given an individual choice, if you went to people and you were like, hey, do you think that you should be surveilled? Are you excited about living in a police state? Do you think that the people who work with you could be trusted to make the best decisions for you? The answer would be no, absolutely not. And then it's cool. Are you willing to sacrifice something for it? And they're like, oh, also no, absolutely not. No, I'm just going to go along to get along. That's how you end up with roving gangs of Muslim rapists in Europe right now. And you have this viral video, which has been clearly promoted. And it's it's some sort of programming garbage. This Citizen Vigilante movie that was out on Netflix. And I saw some scenes from it. It looks garbage to me, to be fair. It may be kind of a good feeling. What it shows me is that people are going to watch something on TV, and that's going to be the outlet instead of them actually doing the thing that needs to be done. People are not destroying flock cameras. One guy is destroying a few flock cameras, and people are like, he's a hero. Meanwhile, has anyone donated to his legal defense? Have they gone out there and done it so often that you can't arrest everybody? Are there people wearing Guy Fawkes masks out every day destroying these damn things, which are out there looking in on you? The answer is basically no. And I'm not destroying them either, to be fair. I hate them. I despise them. I don't see them in my neighborhood. I don't see them I watch on my route and I don't ever see them. I haven't gone out and destroyed any of them either. So I'm not advocating for the destruction of property, nor am I saying that I've gone out there and done it. What I'm saying is, wouldn't it be nice if we had a functional group of people that we elected to be able to kind of look after, the Bill of Rights and constitutional freedoms? Wouldn't it be cool if we had someone run on that? This idea that we should take care of America and handle all our domestic issues and fix all that stuff and maybe deport people that don't belong here and that are sucking off our resources. And the answer is yeah, we did. Did we get it? No, what we got was we're now in a peace deal that also involves missiles, which is a really weird thing to do. So we'll get into that in one second here. We're going to kind of pivot over towards the sort of international piece of it. And I think what's the disappointment of the Trump administration. Guys, if you're watching over on Rumble, give us a like. If you're watching on YouTube, do the same thing. Appreciate that. Subscribe to the channel, either or both, whatever your preferred platform is. And check us out on Spotify at KyleSeraphinShow.com. If you haven't checked out Spotify, it gives you audio, it gives you video. I think it's the easiest thing. I basically will guarantee you that you're not going to get hit with advertisements and rando stuff popping in there more than about every 30 minutes. So you get a pretty good chunk of content before you have to hear one of the ads, and you can skip them even when you're in there. You may hear one of those ads right now. In fact, you might even hear two of them, is what I think. I think I open up the spot for as many as two, and many of you guys find out that you're going to be listening to like a Fox News or advertisement. In any case, there are some things that we do share in common in this country. The argument that I've made is that there's a concept, and I named it, but you could name it anything you want. It's like basic Americanism. And by the way, it doesn't sound anything. Should we do it again? It doesn't sound anything like this.
Maaga Egawa Jacob Fry, Dolke Magalada, Minneapolis.
Okay, that's not basic Americanism. That's weirdo. That's weirdo, subservient, roll over and die mentality. That's we've been conquered, and so I'm going to acknowledge my foreign conquerors. CBS and CBS News did a poll on America at 250 years old. Now, there's been some arguments that I've seen online that I think are kind of compelling, and it was the argument was America had a government, they said, from 1776 to 1861. It's not even that. It's from 1891. 1791. So when the actual Constitution was ratified. So you had the Articles of Confederation right after the Declaration of Independence. We kind of went under this like not really going to work thing. And then we did a much more rigid sort of centralized Constitution. And that lasted until 1861. That's when you had the Civil War. And then in the post-Civil War America, we passed a slurry of things that really radically changed what the Constitution meant. And some of those things are now still being adjudicated. We're about to find out in the next maybe week or two what the Supreme Court says about a thing called birthright citizenship, which is that you can be born in the United States, even though you have no legal right to be here. As long as you are dropped on American soil, the moment that you take your first breath, then you're American as a citizen. That's a hell of a claim. And nobody else really does that. And so that's an 1860s legacy coming in the legacy of us trying to get rid of slavery, chattel slavery, something that kind of like was the original sin of America, if you believe that sort of thing. Kind of interesting to me. Americans are being queried, like, what do you think about America in this post-1860, this is post-Civil War USA? And I would also argue to you that we are in kind of a third iteration. If you had the first iteration was Articles of Confederation, and then that failed, and then you ended up with the American Constitution, so 1790, 1791 on, with our Bill of Rights as it stands. And then you can argue that in the 1861 to 1865, 1868 era, we moved into another iteration. I would say that post-1913, we moved into maybe a fourth movement of America. And we're maybe moving into the fifth movement at this point, where people are recognizing, yeah, we broke all this stuff and it's not going to fly. And the reasons would be sort of like loose conglomeration of states with no central power to be able to enforce anything didn't work. America had no infrastructure, it had no backbone, it had no ability to kind of like press on. So we needed something else. Then you got the Federalist system. It's the anti-Federalist versus the Federalist, and the compromise is the Bill of Rights. So they build this thing up. And so that we lived on that until we got to the Civil War. The Civil War basically said, we're going to do some other things. We're going to try to make it sort of closer to the original intent, a little bit more closer to equal. And then 1913, they were like, yeah, F all that. Let's just destroy the system. Let's give all the power to the federal government. Let's give them the ability to tax. Let's go ahead and break the institutions that are meant to favor the states. So that's your 16th and your 17th Amendment. Interestingly enough, there's some very strong comments, and I'm seeing people even like write books on it, talking about how the 17th Amendment is really the core of when America went off the rails. It's like, that's true, but it happened simultaneous to the 16th Amendment, where they were able to start taxing. If the federal government doesn't bring in money, it has no ability to grow sort of the way that it did. Then you got the 1930s, where they were like, okay, now that you've given us the ability to grow, we're going to actually use that. We're going to centralize a lot of power. We're going to make a bunch of government programs that are never going to die, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So now we're in this moment where it's like, what do we all agree on as Americans? Guys, one of the things we all agree on at the highest level of anything that we agree on in this country is cheeseburgers. I kid you not. It's in the CBS poll. So let's go through this. America marks 250 years since its founding. Bleh. They asked Americans to weigh in. Let's hit some of these infographics. What is the best thing about the American way of life? 44% of people said people in America. Not 44% of people are the best. 44% of people in America said that people are the best thing. 20% said land, resources, and climate, and 17% said economic, trade, and business. Only 10% said our system of government. And I think I've said this a number of times. I'm going to reiterate it. I went through an American federal government class in, let's say, 2003. And it was taught by a guy named Keith Gaddy, who you can look up, but he's an endowed professor at the University of Oklahoma, and he's a real bright guy, and he's a real regular guy, too, for a PhD in political science, as far as I could tell. And the thing that he did in this course, which was geared towards thinkers and not sort of the survey version of, like, what is the American federal system, is we read books that were utopias. We read about the idealistic systems that existed as human beings could conceptualize them. What would make a perfect place? And you're going to be shocked to find out that there are three elements to a utopia. One utopia means there were perfect people, and therefore they didn't need government, and it didn't matter what they had because they made it all work. That's one thing. It doesn't exist. We don't have perfect people. But number one is people in America. The second thing that could create a utopia was a place that had unlimited land resources and the perfect climate. Guys, are you seeing what people think is best about America on this screen right now? Because that's it. Those are the top two answers returned by Americans. And then the third thing was a perfect system of government that was able to compensate for other weaknesses. Weaknesses in people, weaknesses in land and climate and resources being distributed. The top three things that it takes to create a utopia is either a perfect people, a perfect land, or a perfect system. And Americans, on the top four things that they rated about the best thing about America, were people, land, the economic system is sort of in the middle, and then system of government. Isn't that kind of interesting? We actually sort of innately know what this honors U.S. Government class was teaching to me, 20-something years ago, when I was really forming my thoughts about what this country's about. I find that fascinating. It's still true that we have a huge amount of resources. We generally have a pretty good group of people. I don't think the Somalis necessarily destroy us. I think if you celebrate an independent Somali culture inside American culture, that's awful. But land, resources, people, system of government, walk out on your street. If it's not in chaos and fighting, and generally speaking, there's a rule of law with or without flock cameras, that's a testament to what this is. And the sad thing is, if we could get closer back to that system of government, the reason why it's only at 10%, and it should be much better, our system of government actually weighs in on a good and moral people, a land with so many resources and blessings, and then the system is supposed to actually be able to balance out where the weaknesses are in people and resources. That's what it was designed to do. And we've broken all those things. If we went back to it, it'd be interesting. Okay, America's greatest inventions. These are just interesting because these are the top mentioned things. And for some reason, Americans hold on to this legacy. I would argue to you that patriotism and nostalgia have been conflated. That we have this belief that democracy or freedom are uniquely American. They're not. They're really not. But the way that we think about them is we think it's part of our national identity. How many people use democracy and freedom on a daily basis? And would you be doing things much differently if you were in a much more aggressive, totalitarian, authoritarian regime, a fascistic country? Would you live your daily life much more differently? I'm not sure that a lot of people would, to be fair, because I think people are kind of automatons. Democracy and freedom is the 16% was the highest mention of in this poll. The light bulb and interior lighting was the second highest mention. To me, that is incredible. I have used light bulbs, trying to think, 20 plus times already this morning, and it's 9:20 in the morning for me in Texas. I'm currently seated by 3 interior lights that are lighting my way. And I'm looking at screens that are the result of things like interior electricity and light bulbs. You also are sitting in a room, most likely with a light bulb on, unless you happen to be out like my mother, walking and looking at a phone while you're walking your dogs. We think that democracy and freedom are more important, greatest American inventions than lighting or light bulbs, and we didn't invent democracy, nor did we invent freedom. That is a hell of a marketing push that America has, isn't it? The internet, 10% of people said, as the number 3 most answered or top mentioned invention. Well, we can thank Al Gore for that. The crazy thing, too, is that most Americans that I've talked to that are over the age of, let's call it 35. I'm 44. People who are younger than me also have this instinct if they were old enough to remember anything about the 80s or even most of the 90s. People that live in that sort of xennial or like late millennials, all of Gen X and every boomer I know, if they had the opportunity to shut it down, would get rid of the internet with one button push. It's the red button that we've discussed. If you could push that button, I think your life would be better. I think your kids' lives would be better. I sure as hell know that flock cameras wouldn't be surveilling you in the same way. The internet is a number 3 top mention. And then the automobile. Isn't it amazing that democracy/freedom rates higher than the automobile when there is nothing more free than being able to own your own automobile and go any direction? I did a book. It was like a class project book when I was in high school. We wrote a book called something about, God, I should find a copy of it. I have a copy of it somewhere in a bin. It's like America's love affair with the automobile. And the reason that we sort of postulated as teenagers who wanted freedom, that America loved the automobiles because it represented American freedom. It's like, my father-in-law likes to say this. He may be a communist, but he's correct about this. He would say, where do you want to go? And somebody would be like, oh, well, we could go here. And he says, my car goes in all directions, right? As long as there's a road, and not even if there is a road, for those of you who know, you can drive pretty much anywhere. You just get out there, point the wheels in the direction you want to go, step on the gas, and you were going to go that place. So we could do all kinds of interesting things. We can travel. So freedom is the thing that we love. Light bulbs get the second. The internet, automobile, telephone, and airplanes. 2 mechanisms of travel, 2 mechanisms of communication, one of just pure functionality and sort of, productivity, light bulbs and lighting and being able to kind of control the dark. And all of those things kind of harken back to this idea that democracy and freedom are important. It's just very interesting to see what Americans think about themselves. I'm going to get to where that kind of like lands on the Trump administration in a second, because there was a pitch, there was an understanding of this innate, like these things are not, they're not unpredictable if you were to guess about what Americans thought about themselves. What is America best at in the whole world? Or what is America the best at in the world? Movies and television. Pretty damning. Technology and innovation is a close second by just a few percentage points, maybe even ekes over the top of it based on the margin of error in this poll. Music, sports, and food. None of those things, I guess, have anything to do with innovation in the same way. I guess lighting, internet, automobile, I guess these are kind of technology innovation type things. None of them have anything to do with like freedom, democracy, which is our governmental system. It's just interesting that people sort of have these ideas and they're sort of disjointed. Let's get to the real key. What do we share in common in this country? Which foods best represent America? Now, there's this expression that apple pie is sort of the quintessential American concept. American as apple pie. I have no idea where that came from. But which food best represents America across all spectrums? It's the freaking hamburger. Look at that. 33% of respondents, 1 in 3, would give you the hamburger. And I'm going to guess, because it's at every single restaurant, there's not a single restaurant that sells a hamburger without cheese. There are some places that don't even sell it. You have to ask for no cheese because cheese is the default position. I still think the bacon cheeseburger nationalist mentality is the default position in this country. And so I want to play you a clip from Tucker Carlson, who has been recently under fire for some things that he says. People are acting like he's somehow un-American, or that he doesn't get what this country is about, or that if he leaves the Republican Party, that he's a traitor to some ideas. Nope. He has passionately argued in favor of the people who made the Donald Trump argument. And Donald Trump came up with a couple of really good slogans. One of them was America First. Make America Great Again is done through a mechanism of prioritizing your own country first. So here he is kind of explaining the difference between what was promised and then sort of the failure of it. And then I'm going to show you some of those things, to include the Haitian situation, the fact that there was a favorable Supreme Court ruling, and we're still going to get this rug pull. The rug pull is, I promise you a lot, I get you invested in it, and then once you're bought in, I take it from you, and I profit, and you lose.
More fervently, orient the Republican Party around the single most popular and true message ever articulated by an American politician, which is put your own country first. That's why Trump got elected in 2016. That's why he's president now. America first. And don't think of everything in narrow partisan terms. That's a trap. Most people agree with that. Most Americans have more in common with each other than they disagree on. And almost everybody agrees on that. And almost everybody is willing to tolerate a good faith argument about how to get there. Except a few. And they're the ones running around calling everyone an anti-Semite. But everyone else is like, yeah, of course, that should be the debate. And they'll vote for you. They want that because they know they haven't had that. That's the fact. And what you're watching now, attacking millions of Americans because they're Muslims, it's disgusting. And I'm a Christian. I'm not a Muslim. I know there's a lot of effort to claim I'm a secret jihadi. I'm not. You should not attack people on those grounds. And you're seeing it from Republicans. What the hell are you doing? What you're doing is trying to divide the country. And I've lived through 50 years of this crap. All these fake race wars that they're always promoting. Oh, go hate each other while we loot the treasury. That's exactly what's going on. And most people are totally sick of that. So, yes, there is a possibility for a huge coalition of decent people once they free their minds from the traps set for them by others and realize, wait a second, we all want to make this country better. And the 15% or 30% who don't, okay. You know, good luck in Maryland or wherever you wind up. But the rest of us would like to fix it.
I'm not sure I totally agree with him on that one. And neither are you. He starts carving out some people where I'm like, I have zero Muslim friends. None. Despite this beard, which would theoretically get me at least like a ability to walk in the door. I've surveilled a bunch of Muslim terrorists. A bunch of them. For Muslim reasons, they were interested in terrorizing parts of America. Most of them never actually did it, for whatever it's worth. But it's an interesting argument that he's making. And I think that argument was true for most of Tucker Carlson's life. But I'm not confident it's true anymore. When Americans used to argue about what is the answer, what is the way forward, how do we get the thing that we want, we used to be able to argue from the common position that America, as a general rule, is a good place. That's the default position. We like America. How do we make it better? Oh, we put more money into civics. We put more money into government. We create government programs that help these people out that are having a hard time. That's your leftist answer. And the people on the right would say, oh, we maximize human individual freedom. We allow people to, live as they think. And we encourage, through example, Christian faith, a Western values, which are inextricably Christian. And we show that the government shouldn't solve the problem. Good people in communities with communal pressure should solve the problem. And we should try to make as few rules as possible. And we should enforce them through normal social norms at the lowest possible level. Whatever the government that's closest to you should be the heaviest handed government that touches you. That would be kind of the previous argument. That was all the way through the 90s, maybe in the early 2000s. And then we got into this problematic issue where people didn't even agree that America was good. And there's plenty of people making that argument right now. Will you fly the American flag at home on the 4th of July? 48% of the country says yes, 52% says no, according to this survey. Are you excited about the America 250 celebration? 47% says not at all. No excitement about a birthday of this country. That's pretty damning. If 1 in 2 people look and say, no, I'm not excited. I'm not sure what I think about this country. And so I'm not sure that I can celebrate it. I think a lot of people will have that common understanding. People who loved what America was will look at it and not be excited about what America is. They'll fit into the Kyle Seraphin category, which is a really sad place to be. It's an awful place to raise your children, it turns out, where you say, the country that I was born in would invade the country that I live in, which is another way of saying the America of the 1980s would kick the ass of America 2026. I never moved. I didn't have to leave this country to see this country radically change. And I didn't have to leave this country to kind of stay. I mean, if anything, I've probably moved further to the right, but our politics has aggressively moved to the left, where there is no conservative party. And so there's no opposition. So it just kind of kind of flies unabated. Republicans, they want more surveillance and they want to put more money into it, which sounds like a really leftist thing. You want to centralize money from the government into these surveillance programs, and Republicans say, well, we're going to invest in corporations. We're going to give it to companies so that we can make people, and the free market demands it. I'm like, the free market doesn't demand it. The government is demanding it. The market is just compensating. That's called fascism. When the government says, these are the policies or these are the things that we would like to see happen, and then companies follow along and they're able to profit, that's fascism. That's literally what the left would argue about people on the right these days. And then people on the left are like, we need to give all of our money to the government so the government can give it all back to us in a fair way. There's no peace with people that make those arguments. It's an interesting story. I'm going to put it in the links over on YouTube, and it'll be over on Rumble so you guys can read it in the comments. I think reading some of these things, they give the entire poll if you guys would like to go through it all. There's 10 pages of it. It's not crazy. They give you sort of the highest answers, and they break it down here, whether you're going to fly a flag, whether you think American patriotism is the same thing, or whether we're just dealing with nostalgia, as my buddy Steve Friend says. And I think it's very poignant that we're in a moment of nostalgia where people really wish that we could go back 25 years ago. I had a brief conversation about this exact topic with Thomas Massey, and I think that, consider this, I want you guys to chew on this idea. I don't know it's true. I'm kind of musing on it. I keep seeing parallels between the mid to late 1990s and this moment in history right now, that we're kind of repeating that cycle. I think that 9/11 and the way that America came together after 9/11 with an external foe and the propaganda messaging that was played out on us, which was very, very good. It was really well done. It was executed perfectly. People from my generation all signed up for the military to go do this. Many of us did, at different times. I mean, I went out in 2009. It was well into it. I was 8 years into a war that was 20 years. And I was like, yeah, I'm in. I'm enlisting. I'm leaving my corporate job and I am going to go do something because I think I need to serve this country. A lot of people had that attitude, in my age bracket and above. How many people were honorably separated from the military and then re-upped because 9/11 happened? But if left to their natural devices, would have taken that same sort of attitude that I got to do something to make this place better, and they would have looked at the evil structural failures that are happening inside the country. I think a lot of people would have done that. And I think 9/11 basically took all of the angst, energy, frustration, irritation, intolerance of corruption that was building, that sort of bubbling up, just like F you moment. Whether you talk about something like Boondock Saints, or you talk about the way the movie The Matrix, like our pop culture reflected this disgust at injustice. That's what America is. America is a country of people that yearn for freedom and justice. And you can get people weaponized on either side to be able to think that their side is the only one that is selling that. But at the end of the day, again, this is the bacon cheeseburger national position. It's like, wouldn't you just like to have the best thing for you and be able to make your own decisions and not really force it on others? I think the majority of people would not want to go and try to force it on others. They try to live by example. If you want to radicalize people to your faith, just live it really well and show how happy it makes you. And people will flock to it, whether you evangelize or not. And that's the same thing for leftists. If leftists were all happy by not trying to aggressively convert me to their garbage, if they were just living the best life, I'd be like, man, these people are really doing something. Should we be living like them? In any case, this late 1990s cycle, it was moving in a direction of probably violence, if I have to guess, based on looking at it again. Violence was ubiquitous in the messaging. We can no longer vote our way out of this. It's time to do something aggressive. Kinetic. And then we had 9/11 and it reset the clock. And people are getting back to it, I think. And there was also something that happened in the 90s that was really kind of interesting. I have to double check what year it was. Hold on. the 1992 Ross Perot run for office. And he didn't have a chance. But he got a big chunk of people excited about maybe a non-politician running. Or maybe a common sense person running for office. Somebody that represented like a much more middle ground. Somebody who wanted to see America be successful, didn't want to get down there, wanted to live the example of being awesome about it. And people were like, yep, that's awesome. We like that. And so they kind of crushed him with getting into a party or trying to get into a party. They threatened him with things about getting onto a debate stage and really marginalized him. But remember what happened in the 1990s that was so different. The major networks still really controlled how much information was available to people. So for as much as I hate the internet, we may be in a game changer reboot of the 1990s where information dissemination really can't be stopped. And it might be a game changer for a real third-party candidate who wants to come in and say, both of these parties are clearly garbage and they're clearly lying to you and they're selling you one thing and they're never going to give it to you. They're not going to give you the thing you hoped. If somebody comes in and says this about Haitian immigrants, which is the same thing as saying Somalis are not Americans if they don't adopt to our culture, if they don't shed their previous language and customs and really embrace being in the United States, they just try to create a secondary version of their shit country in our place. If they do that, then that's not what we want as Americans, because we think we're pretty awesome. And apparently you did too when you came here. Imagine not wanting to deport those people. This is something that should have keyed you in, like, okay, this guy recognizes that problem. Ready? You guys remember this one? I know people have said it in the chat already.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
They made a whole song out of it. They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats, right? And so you'd go, well, if people are here not assimilating and eating the dogs and eating the cats and doing all this wild stuff, then you'd go, okay, well, aren't we going to see them get kicked out? Isn't that what we should expect? Should we not expect the administration that was calling that out from a debate stage, that's Donald Trump versus Kamala Harris, shouldn't we expect that to be the case where it's like, now we're going to get rid of these people because we have the ability to do so because the Supreme Court has actually affirmed that case. And we're not going to get that. It sounds like. I'll let you guys make the decision here, but the DHS secretary went on with Jake Tapper, and what I saw that was borderline incredible was this. This is a full-on cheerleader sycophant for the Donald Trump regime, Laura Ingraham, who says exactly whatever the Fox News position is. This is not what I voted for. I'm going to play you at least a couple of minutes of that interview in just a second here so we can see, are we going to get the thing that we asked for now that the Supreme Court has basically enabled it? And the answer is no, which makes people think they can't vote their way out of it. Again, it's going to be the sort of rug pull scenario. If you're watching on Rumble, YouTube, give us a like, subscribe to the channels. You may hear an ad on the audio platforms right now. You might hear one from YouTube right now too. And thanks for listening to those things. KyleSerafinShow.com. If you've not done so already, check that out. Should we get into this little interview here? I think we should. There we go. Let's do Markwayne Mullin. He is the Secretary of Homeland Security. And then we've got Jake Tapper, who is the aging lesbian from CNN. And they're going to have a little mix-up about Haitians.
Obviously, you're correct that the T in TPS stands for temporary. The Trump administration's argument is that this was only supposed to last 18 months. My understanding of how the process works is the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security has the discretion to extend it if the U.S. State Department says that the countries that these people are from are still considered unsafe, which is why they were afforded TPS status to begin with. Is it the position of the Trump administration that Haiti is a safe country to send these people to?
Well, we take a lot of things in consideration. Secretary Rubio, the president, and I have had multiple conversations about this, obviously.
Obviously. I had a boss named Bob when I was in just in my first working job out of college. And he would say, obviously, the same way that Markwayne Mullin says, obviously, and a scapegoat. Markwayne Mullin doesn't seem like a real bright guy, having been on programs where he was there beforehand. He just asked you a question. Is Haiti a safe country? The answer should be, it's safe enough for other people to live there. We can send Haitians back. The end. That's the Trump administration they're eating the dogs and cats answer. That's the Trump from the debate stage. Yes, it's safe enough. Let's get rid of them. It's temporary. That time has come. They got to go back and fix their country. Period. It's not our business. And instead, well, obviously, we had the conversation. We talked to Mark and Romeo.
The qualification isn't quite just that simple. And
why not?
Keep in mind, a lot of these individuals haven't been here 18 months. They've been here 18 years. Some of them have been here 20 years, 30 years. They've had plenty of time to reestablish their status.
He said reestablish.
Inside the United States, they just chose not to. Then there's some that has been here underneath the Biden administration that took advantage of an open border, and those individuals didn't really come over here because they needed to protect their status. They came over here because they were taking advantage of a weak leadership. So what we want, and the president has made this very clear, those that are coming to this country legally, they need to be able to contribute to the United States, not be a burden on the taxpayers. And so we are continuing looking at our temporary protected status. Those individuals that do need assistance because of the country they're in, we're always looking at them. There isn't a more generous country in the world than the United States.
What the F is he saying? What words are coming out of his face hole that mean anything? Does anyone walk away and be like, oh, well, now I know what the answer is? You know? What does that have to do with America First, which was the pitch that Tucker Carlson was discussing and that Donald Trump made a durable movement behind? Solve our problems first.
United States, but we don't want people to take advantage of it.
Right, but do you maintain that it is safe in Haiti to send these people back?
Just, okay, for those of you that are, what is your answer to that? Forget Mark Wayne Mullen. This is such a simple question. Yes, it's safe to send people back to Haiti. The reason I know is because Haiti still exists. There are still people in Haiti. And I don't have to worry about Haitians. My job is to worry about Americans. Haitians have to worry about Haitians. How hard is this stuff?
Well, I think, like I said, Jake, this is a decision that's being made from the State Department, from myself and the president, and there's a lot.
Did that sound like a yes to you?
Of things that we look at when we take this in consideration. It's not just one factor that plays into this.
The reason I ask is because I heard Stephen Miller, who's driving a lot of this, say that Haiti is safe for Haitians. And I just looked at the State Department's website, and they have a level 4 do not travel advisory for Haiti.
Because it's not safe for Americans, Jake Tapper. Haiti is not safe for Americans who live in America, who have first world American expectations, who don't look like Haitians, who don't sound like Haitians, who don't have family and connections to Haiti. Don't go there. Yeah, that's super easy. We say that about a bunch of places. Amazingly, this is kind of like the survivor theory of America. Like, Americans can't make it in other countries where it is not like America. We have all these expectations. What does that have to do with Haitians going back to their own country? We voted for the Stephen Miller version of it. This is the rug pull. The rug pull is Stephen Miller sold you on very aggressive immigration policies. And then you get the actual version of it, which is soft and weak and effeminate and mealy-mouthed and no answer. And there's a lot of people involved in this, including myself. And nobody wants to just say, yeah, Haiti is obviously fine for Haitians. Haitians live there every day. We're going to get rid of some people. They're going to go there. Some of them are going to have to get parachuted into freaking Haiti if they don't want to leave. We'll stack them up and we'll one-way some of those parachutes we've been trying to get rid of out of the old Army inventory.
Just from a few months ago, from April, and it says, quote, violent crime is rampant. The expansion of gang, organized crime, and terrorist activity has led to widespread violence. Crimes involving firearms are common. Crimes include robbery, carjacking, sexual assault, and kidnappings for ransom. That doesn't sound safe to me.
Well, that do not travel is not for Haitians. That's do not travel for the United States, because they are kidnapping or trying to kidnap individuals from the United States because they feel like their family has the money to pay the ransom. We have do not travel in places in Mexico, or advisory warnings. In fact, if you go through our website in the State Department, you'll see there's advisories to a lot of places that are vacation destinations that we have advisories on because of the real risk to Americans. That doesn't mean it's a risk to the individuals that live there. So that advisory is to American citizens traveling to Haiti, not Haitians going back home.
How can you give that answer, which, by the way, is the correct answer, and then not say, obviously Haiti is safe for Haitians? You just literally said Haiti is safe for Haitians. It's not safe for Americans. So we're going to send Haitians back to Haiti. How?
I understand that, but based on everything I've read, including the UN and Human Rights Watch, it doesn't sound safe for Haitians. More than 8,100 killings documented last year. Those weren't Americans.
Tough shit should be he's Mark Wayne Mullen. He's from Oklahoma. He's supposed to be a plain-spoken plumber who's an everyman who doesn't even know how words work and uses the wrong ones. Wouldn't it be real easy to just go, yeah, tough shit. That's your country. Go back. We should have never taken them in the first place. That's what a regular human being would say. That's what a bacon cheeseburger nationalist position is. It's like, yeah, the world is full of a lot of shitholes, man. Jake Tapper, it turns out that it is best to be born in America, and the thing that we prioritize here in America is America. That's what America first would mean.
Haiti is among the top 5 countries with the highest rates of rape and sexual abuse, with more than 1,200 cases of sexual violence last year.
Yeah, the short version, imagine if he said sucks to suck, which would be a very mean-spirited thing to say to not Americans and should make no difference. I always see this and I'm like, what is the angle of these people? Are they trying to not offend Haitian non-legal residents of this country or temporary residents of this country? They don't want to upset the Haitians that live currently in America that have no right to be here any longer than they do. Why? Why do you have to be so nice about it? Why do you have to go on CNN and play friendly and play footsie with the hard leftists? Do you think that there's any chance they're going to cross over and be like, yeah, now that we're first generation American, second generation American, and we've given up any interest in Haiti, we're going to abandon this idea and we're going to say, yeah, Haiti sucks. That's why we don't go back. Or are they going to keep having this fake idea that Haiti is amazing? We got to be gentle with shithole countries that are clearly shitholes, which is why these people fled.
That's not Americans. 1.4 million people have been displaced. Those aren't Americans.
So what? Yeah, they don't matter.
Is there a question in that?
Well, I'm just saying,
I'm sorry.
Let me ask you.
So what's the result of that? I didn't just put this in a vacuum. Here's Newsmax covering it. Mark Wayne Mullen. Haitians can seek temporary, or the ones that are on temporary protected status can seek legal status here now. Is that what you voted for? Not Laura Ingraham doesn't like it. Haitians who have been in the United States for years under TPS can apply for permanent residence or a temporary visa, so saith the Homeland Security Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen. He was on CNN. You just saw about 4 minutes. I think that was a fair representative group. You got to see what a mealy-mouthed, soft, garbage sort of rug pull that we're seeing here. Mullins defended the Trump administration's decision to end TPS for hundreds of thousands of migrants from Haiti and Syria, because we just got a Supreme Court decision that said that that was fine. It was never meant to be permanent, but they can all apply for lawful permanent residence or temporary visas if they qualify, instead of they have to leave. He also said that we would be voluntarily giving them airfare and roughly $2,100 so that we could deport them. Do you know how crazy it is that we're willing to send you back to the country that you snuck into or came here and then claimed asylum, or you rolled in out of Venezuela on some sort of thing? You remember they were coming in through the southern border of Mexico, which means they hit other countries that were safe for them to stay, but they wanted to come to the United States, and they all got here, and we're going to give them $2,000 each and then fly them somewhere. Would anyone like to be deported to a country and get some money for it? Like, this is such a crazy position to hold. And then you've got the reason why this exists, because there are a ton of people in the so-called conservative right-wing side that actually agree with the softy garbage. Made an argument here for several years now. I'm going to continue to make it. It's kind of nuanced. The concept of rhino, a Republican in name only, applies to actual conservatives, people who are constitutional, libertarian, conservative type people, Christians, generally speaking, too. If you are a constitutionalist that want the original interpretation, if you are a libertarian, generally speaking, who wants like the smallest touch of government, if you are a conservative who thinks that America like was better back in the past because of the way that it was closer to the original founding intent, you know, people, land, culture, the whole thing. The government was good when it was smaller and it was like less invasive and less corroded. All of those things. You're a rhino. If you're a Republican at all. I'm not a Republican at all, so I don't have to worry about one way or another. I'm not rhino or otherwise. Rhinos, Republican in the name only, are the conservative part of the GOP. The majority of the GOP, my argument to you, is squishy, soft, mealy-mouthed, Mark Wayne Mullen, just gentle garbage that slowly loses and it endorses a center-left position. Not center-right, not hard-right. It endorses this squishy loss of terrain over and over again. That's what a rhino is. Me, I'm a rhino if I were to register as a Republican, because I actually want to go and reclaim some of this stuff. I actually believed in the stuff that Donald Trump was saying, the mass deportation that we were supposed to do. The largest deportation operation in human history or in American history, like that's what I'm about. I'm about the Stephen Miller messaging version, seal the border and kick everybody out. Real Republicans are like John Kasich, who ran for president, who ran against Donald Trump, if you recall. This is what a real Republican position is. So if you're not this and you are a Republican, my argument is you're a rhino. And you should embrace that. Tom Massey would be a rhino. Rand Paul would be a rhino. There's a lot of people. Rhino should be a thing that we're like, yes, we're Republicans in name only because there is no third party. There is no Ross Perot option to be able to get behind. That's just common sense, wants like American business and Americans to be successful. There is none of that. That's not an option in America. So you have to be a rhino. Here's the real Republican position.
The Supreme Court decision has said that Haitians are going to have to be removed from Springfield, Ohio. I guess I understand that, but there is an opportunity for the Congress to extend temporary protection status because things in Haiti are just deteriorating, and sending people back there with their families, to me, is just crazy. I wish the Congress would extend this for the Haitians, but if not, they'll say that that's the law. And to quote somebody, a figure from a Charles Dickens novel, if that's the law, then the law is an ass.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
And Americans went, yeah, they don't share our culture, whether they're literally eating pets like geese or pigeons or anything else, or whether they just would because they come from not America and they're not bacon cheeseburger types. We don't care. And the left version of it, the Kamala Harris, she's like, oh, can you believe it? The kind of same Hillary Clinton face that you saw. This is ABC News. What to know about birthright citizenship ahead of the Supreme Court ruling. It's one of the most anticipated of the year. The United States Supreme Court is expected to weigh in this week on President Donald Trump's attempt to end birthright citizenship through executive order, a move which would upend more than a century of legal precedent and a national tradition that said babies born on American soil are automatically American citizens. It is insane that that is our position. But again, that came from, let's say, the third movement in American politics. This is the post-Civil War movement. They're expected to weigh in on this. The ruling is one of the most highly anticipated of the year, a major test of his unprecedented assertion of presidential power, only because we have a broken system in the legislature. I don't think the solution is like mediocre exorcisms or exercising of executive power. This is kind of an executive wannabe move. If they were serious about it, they would just act as though it were true and they wouldn't be listening to the courts at all. And they would just say, okay, well, you rule on it. We're going to act on it. See if you can get these people back after we get rid of them all. But they didn't do that. Birthright citizenship is the idea that a child is automatically an American citizen when they're born here, regardless of the immigration status of the parents. This is the right of soil extending citizenship based on geographic location only. By contrast, many countries rationally do not extend citizenship under this principle. They do it under the right of blood, which is determined by the nationality of the child's parents, regardless of location of birth. Do you know that if you come here as you're a diplomat's child, you don't get citizenship right away? If you come here and you have legal status to be here as a diplomat representing another country, but if you come here illegally, you do get your child to have status? That's crazy. It's all crazy. With few exceptions, there's approximately 3.6 million children born in American hospitals each year. The birth certificate alone has been a key to a social security number, passports, and early life benefits. Oh, so there's a cost to the American people. In adulthood, this birth certificate is universally recognized as proof of citizenship for such things as voter registration, employment, home loans, and military service. You mean you can bring people here, they can be born here under temporary protected status or other kind of crazy things, and then we give them all the benefits of citizenship. It's nuts. It also allows for rampant and crazy fraud. Here's HHS secretary. Is that what it is? Is that what he is? No. I think it is. HHS. It's RFK Jr. talking here with Dr. Oz about those fraud things. We heard about this. People that didn't have social security numbers being registered and getting money. People who had no business getting all kinds of public benefits. This was like a Doge talking point. And again, where did all that stuff go? Where did this administration go? They talked up a big game. They said they were going to go uncover fraud, and they're still talking about it 18 months later with no change. Except we get cool videos. This goes to my other sort of supposition that the announcement is the success. The announcement of a plan is the same as saying that the plan was successful.
Hi, I'm Robert F. Kennedy Jr., your HHS Secretary. I'm joined today by my good friend and anti-fraud warrior, CMS Administrator, Dr. Mehmet Oz. Healthcare fraud and corruption affect millions of Americans, and maybe even you. The Obamacare marketplace is plagued by fraud, in large part because the Biden administration dismantled basic program integrity guardrails, while partisan lawfare blocked common sense efforts to protect taxpayers. Today, Dr. Oz and I are exposing one of the latest examples of fraud that we've uncovered. More than 1 million people enrolled in Obamacare without Social Security numbers on file. That is a glaring warning sign of fraud. If even a single person was on Obamacare with no Social Security number, we should have found out. Why are we paying people who we don't know if they actually exist?
Shady insurance agents and other bad actors have been getting paid to enroll unsuspecting Americans in health plans they never signed up for. These rogue agents have been flooding into healthcare.gov. That's the Obamacare marketplace. They submit applications for fake people, enroll stolen identities, all to collect millions of dollars in improper fees from insurance companies for selling plans they never legitimately sold. Some of these agents refuse to follow basic rules, like providing their client's Social Security number. That, my friends, is a huge red flag.
These fraudsters deliberately pick plans with no premiums. No premiums means no bill. No bill means most people never know that they've been enrolled in a plan that you and I are paying for with our taxpayer dollars. The only people who benefit are the fraudsters.
The Trump administration has zero tolerance for that. So here's what we're doing about it. In May, we took swift action to block this fraudulent behavior directly on healthcare.gov and through our marketplace call center. If an agent wants to be paid, they must follow the rules. No ifs, ands, or buts. They are going to have to provide government-verified information for their clients to be enrolled.
Thanks to this aggressive enforcement strategy, we've already eliminated thousands of fraudulent policies, and we're just getting started. We're also working with insurers to cancel every policy that should never have been issued and recover every taxpayer dollar that was fraudulently paid out.
We also should have a real conversation about why on earth we are doing this at the federal level, and why is it HHS that's doing it, and why are you not hearing from your FBI director who has an entire group, an entire division of people that do white-collar healthcare fraud. But those people would rather run down garbage drug cases and look for people that are improperly signing prescriptions for pills. The wrong people keep giving us the message. And when you get it from the wrong place, you just know it's like, okay, got it. We're going to have hearings in Congress. We're not going to have arrests and people frog marched out in handcuffs. Okay, noted. We're not going to get reform because we are doing it with the same people. We haven't changed out anything. We're just doing a lot of messaging. Sounds good. Sounds good. Same kind of story in our foreign policy, it seems like, when it comes to what's going on in Iran right now. We're going to touch that in a second here. I'm going to finish up, since they were talking about fraud, they were talking about money. There's a pretty fascinating little discussion about dollars. And I had this weekend, so we'll get here, and then we'll end with sort of like the ceasefire that involves explosives. This came up the other day on social media. I think my buddy Ryan Matta punched this out, and it said something to the effect of, it costs $107,000 to live comfortably in America. I don't know what comfortably means, and I don't know if that's an average. I've seen this on probably a dozen different websites, and it all comes in from like sort of shady sourcing. It seems like it's an opportunity to talk about affordability in America. It's also objectively ridiculous to act like $107,000 is required for a single person in America to live comfortably. That's obviously not the case. These numbers are crazy inflated, and I have no idea what they mean by comfortably. But I've made the point. I pushed it out over the weekend and got pushed back from people. I'm not arguing that our government is doing a good job. I'm not arguing that our economy is in a good place. In fact, the evidence is pretty overwhelming that it's not. What I will say is to think that it takes $107,000 to live solo in this country is absurd for everybody. And all it does is rage farm. And that I've done the numbers on mine, and a pre-tax income is about, I need about $85,000 to keep my family of 6, which is 4 children who are small. They are 9 and under, and my wife. And we live very comfortably. Like, we live in a house. We never worry about hitting any of the bills. At $85,000, I'm going to be able to sustain my family right now. Now, we've made some really good choices in our life, and we don't have any debt, and I don't owe any money on cars, and we maintain them pretty easy. So $85,000 for a family of 6 is totally doable, assuming you're not saddled with a bunch of other kind of problems. That being said, $107,000 for a single person is craziness. So I'm going to read this little article. This comes from the Dallas Express. It's undated, which is frustrating. Oh, no, so there it is. It was just built in here. This is from November of 25. So this is relatively recent, 6 months old. And again, this was something that was just running around on social media last night. Oh, you guys are bringing me up to something.
Stricken. You're stricken. Poverty-stricken.
There are some poverty-stricken people. Okay, the entire country has felt pain of inflation since the pandemic. How many people in Dallas-Fort Worth need to earn, and how much they need to earn to live comfortably? Travel advice website, Upgraded Points. Okay, now I found where the damn thing is. It says people in the DFW Metroplex. I miss hearing that. When I lived in the Dallas area, they would always call it the Metroplex. I always thought that was funny. There's not a lot of places where you're like, what's going on in the Metroplex? Metroplex. It requires you to earn a pre-tax income of $107,061 to, quote, live comfortably among major U.S. cities. DFW was 26th on the list in terms of the highest required salaries, which means there are, 25 that are more expensive than that? Here's what they came down to. If you live with a spouse in Dallas-Fort Worth, 2 adults, no kids, you need $138,000. 2 adults and 1 kid, you need $185,000. 2 adults and 2 kids, $221,000. 2 adults and 3 kids, you need $265,000 to be able to comfortably live. That's freaking nuts. Number one, I don't think that's true. So this is the frustration. What I wonder is, and this was pointed out by one of my followers on X, what I wonder is, are these ridiculous numbers meant to talk people who are young out of having children? And I would like it if you guys weighed in, if you have a comment on that. Think about it in those terms. If you see that it's too expensive for you to live happily and be comfortable, would you also be thinking, oh, I'm not going to have kids then? Is it an attempt to keep you from procreating? And I suspect that it is. But I'm interested in your opinion as well. It bothers me. Because here's where the other part of this story comes in that's absurd. In DFW, the median personal income is $51,600. So how is it? Does that mean that everybody is living not comfortably? I did the numbers in Williamson County for a family of 4. So that's 2 kids, 2 adults, smaller than mine. Okay. And that family of 4, they did, I asked it to the AI to take the population statistics and sort it by quartiles. So the bottom 25% earns $40,000 or less. Those people are probably struggling in my area. And then the next one was between $40,000 and $67,000, if memory serves. I actually should go pull it down. I should have it on my X. You know what? I'll do it on my X right now. Somewhere, I posted this thing. The numbers they're not in sync with what is being argued. So we got to, okay, here we go. The first quartile, I'm not going to put it on the screen. I'm just going to read it off. It's 40,300 and less for a family of 4 is the bottom quartile. The next is going to be 40,300 to 67,200. I did remember that. Good job, Kyle. Okay, so that's your bottom 50%. And by the way, the first quartile should be like the 25% and lower, but it's actually 30% for some reason on here. Then your next quartile is going to be 50 to 80%. That's 67,200 to 107,000, which means that if you are making more than 67,000 in my area, you're in the top 50% of incomes. And my assumption is that you're alive because there are people surviving that make less. And then if you make that 107,500, which is being argued in this news article here, in my area, which is not that dissimilar from the DFW area, it might even be more expensive here in some ways, you're in the top quartile, the top 25% of all incomes for the house. And that's a family of 4, not a single person. Again, I do think they're trying to dissuade people from having children. But that doesn't mean that like everything is going great. It doesn't mean that this country is doing a great job of providing opportunities or that we're doing the things that we should be doing. But I do think they're trying to scare people out of having kids. The other thing that my wife wanted to point out to me, and I think it's worth pointing out to you as well, is that we've had more money come in every year that we've been married because we got older, we got smarter, we got more capable, we paid off debts, we made good decisions, we brought on more expensive by having more kids, but we also, when we got married, we had huge upside potential, but like low actual incomes. And I had 3 kids and I was making far less than $107,000 a year when I was living in Washington, D.C.'s area, which is one of the most expensive parts of the country. I find these kind of articles very frustrating. They do kind of hone in on a thing that people are scared of. And the thing people are scared of is, will I be able to afford to have kids? And if not, then should I have kids at all? And should I just skip it? Should I forego the thing that all human beings have done for all of human history to continue the species? So here's kind of an interesting article from CNN. This is in their subscriber section. I will give you a link so you can bypass the subscriber bit. It's an archive link. The stock market rally that's making some people rich and everyone else miserable. This, I think, is the heart of the matter, this sort of K-shaped economy. All right? And none of that means that you should not have kids. If you're listening and you're young, if you're under my age bracket, you can get married and have kids. Just do it. Your life will be better. Super simple. The saving grace of this economy that everyone hates is that wealthy Americans are keeping it afloat by spending throughout the tariffs and the inflation and the war, and you name it, they're spending plenty. The ugliest part of this economy is that the wealth gap between affluent and low-income houses continues to widen, postponing or destroying the American dream for millions of hardworking Americans. I think these things can be true. It also means you can still get by making better decisions. Tightening your belt has nothing to do with whether or not things are fair. It has to do with whether or not you're going to be able to survive. And I also want people to just consider, if you've ever thought, hey, I have it really hard, go and watch the pilot for Little House on the Prairie. Just the first episode. Just to readjust your perspective about what hard looks like. If you have more than one plate per person in your home, you are wealthy by 150 years ago's standards. If you have a switch that you can turn on and you have electricity in your home and water comes out of a tap, then you are wealthy beyond all belief compared to kings of old in human history. And so we do have this thing, this American sentiment that we should have all these things. The funny thing is we're bringing in people who are from like shitty countries, and they are actually bringing us backwards instead of us just recognizing like, oh, we're really blessed and we can celebrate the things that we have that are amazing. And at the same time, things can still be really hard relative to where we're at. But as my wife and I were standing in the kitchen the other day looking around, and we were like, oh, there's food in the fridge for days. There's water out of the tap. There's toilets that flush. The doors all work. There's air conditioning and we can afford to pay our bills. Like, we are wildly blessed, even though things are tough. They're plenty tough, right? The vehicles that sit out there can drive from this side of the country to the other side of the country. I could make it to the terrorist plot in Washington, D.C., unlike the guys in California. Both of my vehicles would drive straight to Washington, D.C. today if I wanted to. So, that makes us kind of wealthy beyond belief compared to Americans for history. Anyway, underpinning both the best and the worst parts of Americans' economy is the mind-boggling stock market rally. This is the thing that the Trump administration has kind of like hung their hat on, and it's a problem. It's a catch-22 with no easy solution. But the stock market rallies that powers also divide and fizzle out people. The economy could also take a significant beating. So here's where it comes down. Despite near record low consumer sentiment, Americans of all stripes and income levels are spending at a faster clip this year than in 2025, probably because things cost more for whatever it's worth. According to the Bank of America Institute monthly report, wealthy Americans are doing most of the heavy lifting. Some of these numbers are staggering, and this is why people are concerned. This is the K-shape. If you don't know what the K-shape economy is, it means that some things go up and then other people are going down. So as some people are triumphing, other people are like losing, right? A lot. And so the top 20% of earners make up 57% of U.S. consumer spending. That fact right there is wild. That's the Dallas Federal Reserve saying that. Not only because they're richer and have more money, but because of the kind of wealth that they hold. Wealthier Americans are more likely to be homeowners, and they can unlock significant equity from surging home prices. This is the thing that Donald Trump was actually actively saying. He was excited that Americans, for the first time, this is primarily people that are older, later Gen X and boomers, who have been established in their homes are now worth things that are completely unreasonable to normal people. And so they feel wealthy for the first time in their lives. You guys have heard the president say these things. These are problematic. By the way, I did kind of a little quick experiment. I went back to the house that I owned in Las Cruces, New Mexico, that I bought when I was making $120,000 a year as a federal agent. So I'll just give you hard numbers. That's how much money I made when I moved out to Las Cruces. It's $120,000. It was a GS13 Step 1 in 2021. And the house I bought was very nice. It was about $500,000. And my mortgage was about $2,100. That included like taxes and like all the things that you have to do in there. All the sort of stuff, property taxes and, servicing the note and interest and principal and all that. About $2,100 a month. That same house, if I were to go buy it today, in the same way that I did back then, with the same amount of money down, I would be paying $4,700 a month for the same house that is now older. From $2,100 to $4,700 for the same home. And I sold that house in 2022. And it is now 2026. So 4 years later, call it 5 years later to the day, I bought it and we closed, I think on either May or June. 5 years later, it would be more than double buying that same house per month. Crazy stuff. Wealthier Americans are more likely to be home buyers. They can unlock the significant equity, particularly if they bought or refinanced when it was sub 3%. That was me on that house. Now that's no longer the case. The top 20% of earners own more than half of America's overall home values. This tells you where the K is. 3% of America's home value is owned by the bottom 20%. So poorer people are unable to get into the market. Period. So there is two things that can be true at once. You can say that things are easier in America than they've ever been in all of human history, and all of the sort of luxuries we have were unknown to people just in the very recent history, but comparatively, there's a very big disparity between wealth. This one also says the top 20% of all earners control 87% of the wealth generated by America's individually owned stocks. So wealthier Americans are invested in the stock market. So when Donald Trump is touting the stock market, we're talking about a very, very small number of people. And it's so strange that he continues to tout this. I guess these are the people that he's around. Maybe that's why you get things like this from this administration, which is promised one thing and a golden era and prosperity and, the greatness of the American experience. And it's like, it's actually going to a small number of people. They're not nobody, but percentage wise, it's a much smaller number of what would have been his base. And so I think this is why people get upset about it. Here is the president's daughter letting you know just how tough times are for the Trump family and, what it means to sacrifice for this country. I'm being a little bit sarcastic here, obviously.
My fashion brand, we were doing over 800 million in sales annually. I was running all real estate acquisitions and development for the Trump organization. So I was building the old post office at the same time as I was building Trump Doral, which is 800 acres here in Miami. I had 3 young children, very young in one case. My son Theo was literally like on my hip. He was 6 months old. And then my father won the presidency, and he said, I need you. He'd never spent a night in Washington until his first night in the White House. And he didn't know anyone. Yeah. You know, I mean, we lived in New York City. Half the politicians we knew, they were Democrats who would come annually to fundraise and introduce themselves. So he really knew no one. He was going to a new city, and he trusted my ability and Jared's ability. He trusted our judgment. He trusted our instincts. He trusted our intentions, the fact that we would be honest and truthful with him, and he asked us to go. This was after he had won, around a week and a half after. And so the complete change in trajectory of our whole lives.
It's like a 180.
It's like you went from one thing, making tons of money, to then also negotiating with tons of money. Yeah, she said $800 million a year coming from the fashion brand. In any case, this article points out what the risk looks like. The stock market gains have been helping keep the economy humming, but it's also exacerbated the yawning wealth gap. That's a good expression. If we're counting on the stock market to sustain the consumer economy, we are leaning on a channel that deepens the K-shape rather than offsets it. These are what the analysts are saying. The K-shape, that divide between what people have on one side or the other. And the people that are making the money are the ones that are involved in the market. And yeah, if you can get in the market, that's a great option for you. And there's definitely big gains to be had. S&P 500 gave a return of 22% over the past year, in the last 12 months. It's a 76% return. That's crazy high, by the way, since 2023, and 327% over the past decade. Here's the issue. Because your money isn't worth jack, as many of you are finding out. When the same house is going to cost me significantly more to get into it, even though it's older and it's not nearly as nice. This is just the evaluation of the property as it stands. We kind of know something is wrong. People on the conservative right are like, yeah, tighten the money supply. Let's get this thing done. There's got to be a dip. For every up, for every boom, there has to be a bust. For every failure of government regulation, there should be a complete gutting of that industry. We should have bubble pops and so on. But what do? They just keep propping it up against this sort of like cronyist capital thing. My cousin and I had this conversation not long ago. We were like, the fact that America didn't have a complete bottom out reshuffling of the deck in 2008, when the banks were getting bailed out by the government on our dollar, and we didn't really have a say in it. That should have been a generational reshuffle where guys from my era had an opportunity to go in and buy things that were inefficient and bloated and buy the means of production, the capital sort of things, because they failed. And instead what we did is we propped them up because what? Because our system is no longer doing free market economies. It has nothing to do with fairness. It just has to do with access. It has to do with the government sort of like maintaining the status quo at all costs, including selling all of us out. So that kind of frustrates people. People get pissed at that. The people on the political left are also pissed about that. We're going to end up with weird allies on things like AI for the exact opposite reasons. We're going to say that the Trump administration has been a disaster, and other people will agree with us. They'll say it because there was fascism and tyranny and God forbid. And we'll say it because we were promised like real reform and it didn't actually get done. And I think all that's going to mean is that like the Republicans have basically, because they were the party in power, they're going to be the ones who have to eat it. And the other side of the aisle is going to be sort of just the standing there and absorbing the next opportunity, but they didn't earn it because they're nuts. They're truly nuts, the people that are on the hard left. This is This is Scott Wiener, who recently won a primary and is now going to find himself like the heir apparent to ending up in the House of Representatives. This dude is the creepiest perverted creep you could find. And even he is getting cast out of his own radical loony left movement out in California because he happens to have Israeli supportive, like the Israeli cause. This is going to get us to the war thing, that sort of foreign policy thing. This is a wild time when a guy who is like decriminalized, knowingly spreading AIDS has tried to get perverts who are having sex with underage boys off the sex offender registry, who's done some remarkably horrific things in California. He's not loony enough for the left because of something that is like their thing. You think it has to do with Israel? Do you think these people really just love Palestine so much and they really just like love the Muslim people that are living there? No. They just want insanity, and this guy crossed the line on one thing, which is like whatever they can use for power. It is sort of entertaining to watch, though, when lefties turn on themselves. It's different than when we turn on people that betrayed us. These people just basically have zero principle whatsoever. Anyway, let's enjoy this little moment from the weekend. This is what was trending across my feed. Getting owned by your own.
Scott, I think your legislation on trans issues and your legislation specifically protecting queers on sex offender registry is fantastic. Like, I really applaud you for that.
I think it's a guy.
And I think you deserve to be here for that. But I think your housing policy, and specifically your housing policy aligning with YIMBYs, and I think your policy, and I think your policy on the genocide in Gaza, and I think your policy on the genocide in Gaza is terrible. I think you do not belong here.
I'm going to pause it for a second. Did you hear that guy get himself? He was like, I think this policy is good, and this policy is good, and this policy is good. I'm going to get really worked up. And so he gets super worked up, and he's screaming about his policy in Gaza. Yeah, if you guys have seen this face, this guy is now getting hounded all over the district that he's running in. He got hounded in the Mission District in San Francisco. He is like the poster boy for gross, radical, homosexual agenda garbage. This, theoretically, this guy could be Scott Presler if he wanted. All he has to do is grow his hair out, and he's Scott Presler. But it's pretty incredible to watch them get revved up about something, because the revolution is what's exciting. This is why you can't make peace with the left. This is why it's so offensive when someone says like, "Oh, you're if you don't support us, if you're not with us, you're against us." No. Like, we're not the same. I don't want to make peace with any of these people. I don't want to be involved in any, like, there's almost nothing other than I'll say like, yeah, this is why Tom Massey gets smeared. Because he's going to say that we shouldn't do this thing because the government is doing overreach. And these people are like, the government's not doing enough. He ends up voting the same way. I guarantee you that this guy, Scott Wiener, is very mad about things that are going on in the Trump administration. So theoretically, we would have that agreement. It's just not the reason behind it. I'm going to let him just scream about Gaza for one more second because it's entertaining.
I think you do not belong here. You do not belong here, Scott, anymore. It sucks because you've been wonderful. You've been wonderful for trans people, and you've been terrible. And you've been terrible. You've been terrible. You've been terrible on Gaza.
That repeating thing. You've been wonderful for trans people, but you've been terrible for Gaza. Do you know what kind of a lunatic maniac? Do you think you can get those people on board with bacon cheeseburger nationalism? Absolutely not. Can you get those people on board with that sort of common sense thing that Tucker Carlson was talking about? No. And there's more of those people in existence than have ever been out there before. And, you know, like in any of our lifetimes. This is why I think that opening argument that Tucker Carlson made, where he's saying America first, really resonates. It does, but only if you're not completely insane. And there are probably 10% of people that are completely insane like that. Maybe there's 10% of people that are wildly bigoted and right-wing and loony. And there's a bunch of us in the middle that would be the normal people. But how many people are letting us getting controlled by these fringes? The left loves getting controlled by that fringe. So there's a lot of that. And they're going to get the wrong lesson. The crazy thing is they're going to end up getting the ability to govern again, even though what they're saying, those people are wildly unpopular. It's like the people who came in to do something about it, they failed us. We saw it. So some of us are just going to be like, yeah, won't get fooled again. You're not going to get me excited. You already got me out. You already got my support. And what'd you do with it? Nothing. That doesn't mean that there's going to be support for that craziness. And the polling actually shows that. Here's some CNN. This guy also sounds like he could be out in San Francisco and wearing a dress or whatever.
Because what is true in New York City in a Democratic primary ain't necessarily true nationwide with the general electorate. I mean, just take a look here. Net favorable rating of Democrat Socialists. If you look at Democrats nationwide, look at this. Democrat Socialists are on the positive side of the ledger at plus 17 points. This includes Democratic-leaning independents. But look at all voters. A completely different world. 27 points underwater Democratic Socialists of America are in the net favorable rating. So what do we...
Yeah. So socialism doesn't fly, broadly speaking, in America, even if you get it in New York. So we just keep getting this thing. You have to vote harder. You should be scared. You should be very, very scared. And if you're not with us, you're against us. It's like, nah, I'm just against all of you. I'm against all of you because this shit keeps happening. Oil prices today, this is the lead story from the New York Times. Oil prices rise as the United States and Iran discuss a deal to suspend attacks in the Gulf. Now, you're probably thinking, Seraphin, didn't we straight up have a peace deal? Wasn't there some sort of like negotiation going on? I thought we had a ceasefire. We're having what's called a kinetic ceasefire. That's a ceasefire where you don't actually cease firing. It probably is as appropriate as having an organization or a political movement called America First, where you actually prioritize what's good for Haitians, you know, or Israel, or any other country that's not America, where we're fixated on things that are outside of our boundaries, even though we should be fixated on the domestic agenda. It shouldn't actually be that hard. But this is exactly what we got. Oil prices are rising. Why? They edged up higher. They're actually still pretty decent compared to where they were over the last couple months, but they're still way above where they were in February before we decided to go kick off this military excursion. The U.S. spokesperson who spoke on condition of anonymity to discuss the ongoing negotiations said the United States and Iran had agreed to allow commercial vessels to transit the strategic waterway, that's the Strait of Hormuz, while continuing talks on the existing memorandum of understanding. You guys want to know how complicated and stupid this is? There's an MOU discussion that's ongoing, and then there's the finer details that's ongoing, and they're not happening in the same places, and they're not being done by the same people. Here's the White House press secretary giving you kind of an insight into what's going on. Of course, she's doing it on Fox News.
Well, I just spoke with the president about it. Iran has requested a meeting this week, so Special Envoy Witkoff and Jared Kushner will be flying to Doha for high-level meetings this week as we continue to discuss the memorandum of understanding. On the sidelines of those high-level talks will be the technical talks. So as far as we're concerned, we're holding up our end of the ceasefire. Violence will be met with violence. As you mentioned, Brian, there were attacks on commercial vessels that the United States of America, directed by the president, responded to, and that will continue to happen, but we hope we don't see that. The president obviously wants to see the peace process play out, and the Iranians would be best to sign a good deal with the United States of America because the president has proven he's unafraid to use the might of our military. Look at Operation Midnight Hammer. Look at Operation Epic Fury. Either way, though, the United States of America wins. If the peace process plays, this MOU continues, gas prices will continue to tumble. We're seeing crude is lower than it was prior to the start of this excursion, as the president calls it. Or if Iran chooses to be a bad actor, they'll prove themselves to be the pariah of the Middle East. They've totally alienated themselves from their Gulf and Arab partners in the region. And the United States of America has the best and strongest military in the world. The president retains the right to use it. But again, the memorandum of understanding will continue to be discussed. The ceasefire is in place, and we hope that we can get to a good deal. The president will sign one that puts our nation's interests first.
That was freaking incredible, wasn't it? First of all, I'm not sure if she took a breath through that entire thing. And everything she said was complete bullshit, back and forth. Like that didn't even agree with itself internally. You couldn't listen to that and be like, oh, that makes sense. Yes, we're going to do the thing. So the lie in that entire little discussion that cuts through every single thing she said was the United States operates on 2-year electoral cycles. And every 2 years, we theoretically are handing off power, or we're maintaining and affirming that the power will continue in one party or another, because we have this two-party system. When you live in a totalitarian nation where you're not in danger of losing control of the nation, then you can eat a multi-year problem. The United States is not going to continue giving even the attention span power to Republicans, which means they're not going to be able to steal an election or rig an election or set up an election one way or another. You're not going to be able to see people justify maintaining the status quo of this party is in because they've done such a good job. No one's going to buy that when fuel prices are up. There's another story from the New York Times over here. Iran risks peace talks with the United States to maintain leverage over the strait. This is that thing we talked about last week where we're seeing these drones knocking into commercial vessels because they're not going through the place where they're going to be able to collect tolls on them. Well, why would they risk that? Oh, because they can risk that, because they can absorb this problem. And then meanwhile, the United States cannot. The president of the United States, he may maintain control of the military and he may be able to go do stupid things and claim that we have a ceasefire that also involves us shooting. This is the Kinetic ceasefire. Here's what it looks like. Here's another view of it. That's what a ceasefire looks like, apparently, in 2026 America. My old house is twice as expensive for me to buy, and a ceasefire means things are exploding because American ordnance is coming out of the sky and bombing them. It's freaking nuts. The Iranians can absorb it because they're already in it. They're already getting hit. And apparently they don't seem to mind whether or not they're on the wrong side of like all the Gulf Coast nations, because they're going to collect a bunch of money. And the U.S. needs the deal, as far as I could tell, far more than the Iranians do at this point, at least in the political win, because you're going to get hammered. And that time window is closing. Meanwhile, I saw some discussions about how we have until August to pass the Save America Act, which is not going to happen. It's like all this stuff you can look at. Just set your watch by it. We're not going to get national concealed carry. Since Donald Trump talked about it the other day, I know we're not going to get it because he said it and he got cheers. So the cheers means we're done with it. We're not going to get mass deportations. In fact, what we're going to do is we're going to say that even though the Supreme Court said we're right, we can probably just give amnesty, or we can give legal status to the 350,000 Haitians that are hanging out in Ohio. And I know that because Kasich came out and made the argument. And Mark Wayne Mullen had an opportunity to say, no, we're going to get rid of all of them. And what did he say? No, we're not going to get rid of all of them, because there's a lot of people that are making this decision. It's all of us. So we're not going to be guaranteeing you anything. It's like every single time this administration has an opportunity to take the hard line and do the America First line, they don't do it. They rug pull us. So the rug pull is a great analogy. This was a video that was going around explaining what crypto is. I'm gonna do a voice along with it because I have to explain it. Otherwise, you're not going to understand if you're listening. There's no audio that makes any sense with this. Essentially, what you're going to see is the setup. A guy comes in and he drops, looks like a cell phone on the ground, some kind of thing of value. It doesn't really matter what it is. And the thing of value hits the ground, and a guy on a motorcycle pulls up, gets off his motorcycle, and goes to get the thing of value, the phone. And as he's going to the phone, somebody comes running across the screen and picks up the phone and runs off. And then another person runs in and grabs his motorcycle and steals the motorcycle. And then lastly, in frustration and rage, he throws his hat on the ground. And when he does, and he goes to pick up his hat, someone already runs and picks up the hat. So he got lured in by the phone, the thing of value. And because of it, he lost his hat and his bike, and he didn't get the thing of value. Okay? That's what I see us getting here. We were promised something. When we went to go get that thing, all the other shit went with it. So here it looks like. All right. Here's the guy. He's going to drop the thing of value. Right? Okay, it's on the ground. It's probably a wallet, if we're being... I guess that's probably a wallet. Okay, motorcycle guy goes, oh, you dropped your wallet. Let me go get this wallet. So he jumps off the motorcycle, and he runs over. Oh, motorcycle is taken by the wallet guy. Another guy comes and steals the wallet. Damn it. Throws his hat on the ground, and that person just took it. So everything was set up around you to be able to get you to do one thing. Commit to a path of action like, oh, I'm going to go get this thing. Everything goes away because he did it. One more time. Here. Boom. Now that you've seen it, he's walking. Here comes the set. Wallet down. America First agenda. Don't you love it? Vote me. Oh, I do love it. Yeah, I'm going to go get that. That sounds really good. I'm willing to go for it. Oh, we're going to go do a war in Iran. Oh, just kidding. We're going to go ahead and do some rug pulls on crypto. Gosh, darn it. And off you go. Yeah, Kansas City Shuffle. I 100% agree with you guys that this was a staged video, right? Like, there's no question in my mind. There's a camera that's filming all this stuff. This is a video that is teaching a point. The point is, everyone around seems to be profiting on it. Why would that be? Well, they're all part of the scheme. Everybody walked away, and then they go and they sell off the motorcycle, and they all profit a couple of bucks. It's a concerted effort. The only person who lost was the guy that thought he was going to go pick up the wallet for whatever reason. Maybe he wanted to return the wallet to somebody. Maybe he was being a good Samaritan. Anyway, they got you. They got you good. Very, very frustrating when that's the way the world works. There's another story that I saw on Axios. Maybe we'll cover tomorrow about the student loan crisis, which is that there was all this amnesty that was going on. Meanwhile, people didn't have to make payments on their student loans, and they've been building up in principal only, and now they're going to start getting automatic deductions. So there may be some real bad things. My buddy Ryan used to do this thing where when we were doing the podcast maybe 2 years ago and he was doing some of the production for it, he would Google pawn shop searches in his area to see how desperate people were in the area. This may be something that some of you may want to do. Go into the Google search history and find out if people are doing keyword searches for pawn shops in their area, because there's only a couple of reasons why people go looking for a pawn shop. They're going to look for a deal, or they're going to because they're in a bad spot and they need to go ahead and pawn something to be able to free up something and get some money back in their pocket. And that's never a good sign. That's probably like the lowest. That's probably the lowest form of being able to make a hustle, when you have to sell stuff off at the pawn shop. That's my guess. I've never been a pawn shop guy, but I can have a pretty good instinct on it. All right. If you guys are watching over on Rumble, we really appreciate you guys. If you're watching on YouTube, same story. We appreciate you. Give us a like on there if you're still hanging in there. I have corrected the issue, I think, about the number of ads that were popping up. So you're going to get less ads from our program every single day. They were going every 2 minutes. Now they're every 30 minutes. So we fixed that. Check out our sponsors. You can see them on the screen right here. You'll also be able to see that there is a QR code that you can scan if you happen to be watching on the TV. Scan the QR code. Go check out the people that support our program. You can support them. That's how you support us. Otherwise, become a member of the channel. It's $5 a month on YouTube. It's $5 a month on Locals, I believe, and you can do an annual deal. And as such, you get access to our call-in program, so you can call in and share whatever you like on Thursdays. But really, you're just kind of keeping us free from taking money from anybody that we wouldn't agree with. I'm not going to do it anyway, so we'll do the program as long as it makes sense, and you guys are one of the reasons why we can keep doing that. So I appreciate all of you guys. I do have something funny for you. No particular setup. This is kind of in the vein of Tackleberry. I was going through ammunition in my garage, and I have many types of ammunition. I have many types of ammunition for just like individual rifles. I've got supersonic, subsonic. I've got various different types of like hunting and range ammo for just my 300 Blackout. I was realizing like how much freaking ammo I have and all this kind of crazy varieties. Maybe you've wondered, what are all these bullets? What do they mean? If you walk through like a Cabela's or a Bass Pro shop, or you walk into your ammo shop and you see, what are all these different types of munitions that you're selling? This should help you understand them. And also, I really like the visual of two dudes talking about it in kind of a droll way.
Bro, what is the point of tracer ammo? You are literally giving away your position with a glowing bullet.
Correct.
So why use it?
It shows where your rounds are going.
So it helps you aim and snitches on you.
Same bullet.
Terrible friendship. What's this one?
Subsonic.
Sounds expensive.
It moves slower than sound.
Why would I want a slower bullet?
No sonic crack.
So suppressors are not the quiet part?
They help. Subsonic stops the bullet from clapping the air.
This one looks unfinished.
Caseless ammo.
Where is the shell?
Gone.
You can do that?
Sometimes. No brass casing, less weight, no empty shell flying out.
Why are there 2 bullets in 1 cartridge?
Duplex round.
No.
2 bullets, 1 cartridge.
That feels like cheating.
Triplex has 3.
That feels like paperwork.
More projectiles, worse accuracy.
So it multiplies the problem.
Kinda.
This bullet looks normal.
Frangible.
Meaning?
Breaks apart on hard surfaces.
So the bullet gives up?
On purpose, less ricochet.
That sounds weak.
Until metal bounces back at your face.
Fair. Why does this pistol round have tiny pellets in it?
Rat shot.
That is adorable and concerning.
Tiny shotgun cartridge for pistols.
So the pistol wanted to be a shotgun.
But lacked ambition.
What's this cursed shotgun shell?
Bolo round.
Why is it tied together?
2 projectiles connected by a cord.
That is cartoon ammo!
It spins, spreads out, acts strange.
Does it work well?
It works interestingly.
That means no. Beanbag round. That sounds harmless.
It is fired from a shotgun.
Okay, less harmless.
Blunt force, less lethal, not safe.
So a flying punch.
A legally complicated one.
Why does this bullet have a plastic nose?
Polymer tipped.
Looks so strange.
Flies better, expands more predictably.
So the colorful bit actually matters.
Yes.
Is this bullet...
Okay, this is the weirdest bullet. This is the only one of all of these. I don't have a bolo round, and I don't have one of these.
long like a needle?
Underwater ammo.
Bullets work underwater?
Normal bullets hate water.
Same.
Water slows them fast. These use long, dart-like shapes.
So the bullet becomes a fish.
A very angry fish.
Ammo is way stranger than guns.
That's actually true. I had no idea that they were like needle type pieces of ammunition or bits of ammo that you could shoot out like that. That's bizarre. That's the only one I don't have. So all the rest of them, I think I've pretty much checked off. I've got frangibles and all the other weird polymer tip stuff and subs and supers and yeah. Love guns. Love finding people who don't know what's going on and they want to learn, and you can find out in a cartoon. So now you have it. Also, I like the idea of a pistol round that wanted to be a shotgun, but it lacked ambition. That dry humor gets me. Guys, I hope you have a fantastic start to your Monday. I look forward to spending the week with you. I don't know what we're going to get into, but I'm sure it's going to be a little bit of a disappointment, and we'll try to have a little bit of fun with it as well. For all of you that are out there wondering.
My bing bong ain't out. I'm chilling. Bing bong's not out. I'm good.
Keep your bing bong in your pants. We'll see you guys on the other end. God bless you. Talk to you tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to the Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram @Kyle Seraphin.